Hello, it's GramMoose, and it's bitter cold in Kansas here in January right now. So I figured we'd read about something that happens in the cold. This book is called The Boy Who Lived with the Seals, and it is written by Rafe Martin and illustrated by David Shannon. So here we go. Once the people were traveling on their spring migration and had camped along the shores of the great river. One of the men was down by the river working on his canoe. His little son, a boy of maybe 5 or 6 years old, was there with him, playing in the water, tossing pebbles, and splashing by the shore. As the man worked, the boy grew tired. After a time, he wandered off along the path that led back to camp. See the picture? The sun began to sink. The shadows grew longer, and the man too headed back to his people. But when he reached the camp, he discovered that his son was not there. The parents called and called, but there was no answer. The whole tribe began searching. They looked through the bushes by the river's edge, among the great trees of the forest, and along the foothills of the mountains, but there was no traces of the boy. The elders said that the boy must have been carried off by a wild animal, wolf or bear or mountain lion. The others sadly loaded up their canoes and set off once more on their journey to the spring camp. But the mother and father wouldn't leave. They stayed on for 3 more weeks, searching for their boy. It was dangerous for them to stay all alone like that in a place on their own. But after 3 weeks, they came to accept that their boy was indeed gone. So, with heavy hearts, they at last loaded up their canoe and paddled off, following their people. Yet the parents never forgot the boy. They often remembered how he loved to play in the shallows of the river, how he could always be soothed by the sounds of waves splashing. One spring, when the people again were traveling, they met another tribe and they camped together. One night, an old woman of the other tribe told an amazing story. There is an island, she said, near where the rivers empty into the sea. The seals love that island. When the sun is high, they haul themselves out on the rocks and lie there, drying their fur in the warm sun. And with those seals, there is a boy. When the mother and the father heard this, their eyes opened wide. Their hearts began to beat with joy, and they were sure it was their boy. Gathering some of the young men, they set off in their canoes until they came to that island. They hid themselves in the bushes along the shore and watched. Sure enough, as the sun went up higher, the seals appeared. Their heads dotted the water as they rode the swells of the rocky shore, and they clambered onto the rocks, shook the water from their wet fur, and lay contentedly basking and barking in the warm sun. Last to come up out of the water was a boy, their boy. Some of the young men slipped into the water and swam quietly out to the island. As they took hold of the boy, he began to cry out. Covering his mouth, they brought him back across the river to his parents and to his people. Very dark picture, sorry. But he was strange. He wouldn't talk. He only grunted and barked like a seal. He wouldn't walk, but only crawled on the ground. And he wouldn't eat the food the people eat. He only wanted raw fish, seaweed, and clams, like a seal. Patiently, his father taught him to walk again. His mother cooked the foods he had once loved and showed him again how to eat as a human being. Together, his parents once more taught him the words and stories of his people. In time, the boy was almost as he had been before. But not everything was quite the same. Child though he was, the boy now began to make canoes and paddles for his people. Each was carved and painted with designs of the sea and the sea's creatures. His people had never seen such beautiful things. He began to make bows and arrows too. His bows were the strongest, and his arrows flew furthest and straightest. But he never made them in the village. Always he would take his knives, branches, and tools down to the river, where he would work alone. Many nights the boy's father would have to come and get him from a perch where he sat overlooking the water. Sometimes it seemed to the father that he heard splashes in the darkness, and several times when the moon was bright, he saw sleek round heads disappearing into the water. One night, when the people had built their fires, a faraway look came into the boy's eyes. Then he told them of life under the sea with the seals. He said that the seals traveled beneath the sea like the people travel on land. He said that they built fires at night under the sea and tell stories. Only the stories the seals tell, he said, are of the things that happened long ago when the world was new, and of the things that are yet to happen in the future. His people listened. They felt the wonder of his tales, but they also felt the deep sea moving in his words, and it made them uneasy. So they sat apart, staying distant from him. Only his parents dared come close. They touched his face and called his name to remind him of where he now was. They tried to comfort him. "You have been gone a long time," they said, "but you will see. This is your place. These are your people." But whenever his parents paddled across the river or out into the sea, the boy would hear the seals calling and would want to jump into the water and swim away with them. So his parents tied a deer hide over the boy, hoping he wouldn't see the seals, hoping he wouldn't hear them. And to distract him, they placed bowls of his favorite foods, pieces of fine-grained wood, and carving tools beside him under the hide. One day, they were paddling across the great river, near where it emptied into the sea. Once again, seals appeared and began calling, and the boy began struggling to be free. His parents paddled faster and faster, but it was no use. With a cry, the boy tore a corner of the deer hide free, stood up, and dove over the side, down into the water. Far out where the river emptied into the sea, he reappeared again. Waving his hands over his head, he called out, "Farewell, my parents, and do not grieve. I have another home under the sea, and I'm going there." Then he dove down, 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 under the green sea. His parents quickly paddled to the spot, but it was too late. He was already gone. They placed his carving tools in a box, and let it sink under the water. "Farewell," they said. "Remember us. We shall never forget you." The following year, when his parents and people traveled to the spring camp, a beautifully carved canoe and paddle were waiting on the shore. In the canoe was the box in which the parents had placed the boys' carving tools. After that, each spring, a new canoe and paddle were always waiting, and each year they were more beautifully made, more wonderfully painted and carved, and it eased the pain of missing him just for a bit. For paddling these canoes, the parents and all the people would feel the joy of that boy who went to live with the seals. The end. I hope you enjoyed it. Brush your teeth. Sweet dreams. GramMoose loves you.